Good evening, Global Business Communication. This is week 6, and today we're going to talk about the new media. Last week we separated the lectures into two, and it seemed to work out better. So I'm expecting a similar kind of results this week, something between 20 and 30 minutes each lecture. Today, I know I was supposed to upload it earlier today, but there's several reasons why that didn't happen. One of them is I realized that my wireless headset has a speaker and a headset with a microphone. It turns out they need to be charged separately. So I tried to recharge it multiple times. It didn't work. That's because the battery in the headset was dead, where the speaker was fine. So I didn't realize that was the reason why I couldn't make it work. So a few people have told me, compared to other YouTube channels or playing on your phone, if you put headphones in, you'll be fine. It'll be loud enough. Or if you play on your computer and you have nice speakers, it's not a big deal. But if you just hold your phone and play my voice through YouTube, it's not really as loud as other videos and other channels. So I'm sorry about that. It'll be fixed because I do have a speaker that I'm going to put right next to my webcam, and my wireless headset will be operational tomorrow. I also didn't get to do my presentation, my lecture for this class wearing my Steve Jobs turtleneck, which is too bad because I don't know, it just seems like the right kind of outfit to wear for global business communication. But instead I'm going to wear this blue thing. So let's get into it. The topic for this week is the new media. First of all, I'm thankful for all of you handing your assignments in on time. And I do want you to share with me your username when you subscribe to the channel, but I actually also need you to set your privacy settings so that I can know who you are, because actually if you restrict your subscriptions, like the visibility of them to other people, I can't actually track what you're doing, because that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is when you use the new media, when you use Facebook or other applications, Instagram, WhatsApp, they have various security settings, and some of them are safer than others. And one of the problems with Facebook is that they actually possess all of the data that you provide when you do things using their application. So a number of my friends, I used Facebook originally because I moved to Korea, and I wanted to keep in touch with my friends back home, and I came to Korea at the end of 2006, so a long time ago now, 13 years ago, and I made my Facebook account because I wanted to talk to Canadians, and I don't know, there's like 600 or something people on my Facebook, friends list, and originally though, the majority of them were, people from back home, and that was the reason why I used it so much. I didn't think about whether I was uploading pictures that the government or organizations could use to, use facial recognition to track where I was, or, for example, profiling my preferences and my behavior to predict what way I would vote in an election. One of the things that's very controversial about Donald Trump being elected is whether or not, not him personally, but whether he had the access to information about voters' tendencies and profiles so that his campaign team could get an advantage in determining what things were, hot button subjects or topics that would, swing voters towards his platform. That is something we should talk about, something that the university, I think, at some point in your university career, that a professor in some subject should talk to you about, because I mean, I myself wasn't aware of it, and you need to not be complacent or be passive about how important information is, and that's really one of the fundamental aspects of this course. We talked about misinformation, and that was added to the course after the coronavirus thing put everything online for certain reasons. But I think it was a good thing to include. Just the situation triggered, that inclusion. However, I think this topic, which I included on the original syllabus, was already relevant, very relevant, but increasingly more relevant considering how many things we have to deal with through different channels. And I'm not making a joke about my YouTube channel, but I mean channels in a sense that you can access information in many different ways. And that's why we need to talk about this and take it seriously. Not just because this is what I've chosen to talk about you in this class, but because for the rest of your life, you're going to be making decisions based on the information that comes through these different channels, these different applications, programs, forms, media. Okay, so this is the first half of the lecture, so I'm going to introduce to you one of the most important intellectuals in the history of communication studies. He's a Canadian, just like me, and it's not the reason I'm talking about him, but I feel like I should talk about him because I've usually in class, when I mention this person, I usually like to ask my students, whatever country they're from, Korea, Mongolia, Bangladesh, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, it doesn't matter where you're from, China, doesn't matter, America. I have students from all over the world, but I ask them, I say, can you name a Canadian intellectual? And I usually get, most students know that I'm from Canada, so they're kind of shy about it, but there's really not a long list compared to certain other countries. Greece hasn't had a whole lot of famous intellectuals recently, but I think usually students from any country can name at least three. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle being those three, but there are hundreds of them dating back thousands of years, and Canada doesn't have that kind of background. So it is nice sometimes just to say, hey, there is a guy or a woman or a man who is recognized for something, and he's from Canada, or she is from Canada. So the guy I'm talking about, the man I'm talking, I keep saying guy, he probably wouldn't appreciate it if I called him that, but it's a long time ago, and I'm never going to meet him. So Marshall McLuhan was a communication studies pioneer, and I don't want to get too much into his work. He proposed a lot of ideas, and they have proponents, and they have people who agree with him, and they have people who disagree with him. As usual, there are critics and there are supporters. In general, I don't really want to get into whether his ideas are still perfectly fitted to the way media works now, but when he was studying, when he was developing his ideas, it was a long time ago in the 1960s, and mass communication was expanding, and there was less variety than there is now. So in some ways he analyzed things in a very restricted way. That's one of the criticisms that people level at him, is that he talks about radio, or he talks about comic books, or he talks about telephone or television, and he just describes the whole field as if it's uniform, and it's not. Television is different. Now we have certain types of television. We have things like HBO, or we have Netflix, or we have Disney Plus, and there are big differences between those things. You could watch the exact same thing on these different platforms, these different media, but the way that you interact with them might be different. So, and that's the key. This is the key to Marshall McLuhan's theory, is that he just separates all media essentially into these things he calls hot media or cool media or cold. But I prefer the term cool because it seems to be less extreme if you just say cool rather than hot and cold. Because hot and cold implies, binary opposition, which I think is not really accurate. Anyway, what a hot medium is something where there's a high definition and a lot of information that's provided for you, but you don't interact with it, or you don't have the ability to select. It's kind of like I've heard it described as being spoon-fed, right? Like spoon-fed means like, here comes the airplane, and then you eat it and you go, yum, 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 yum. Oh, thank you for feeding me that. You don't get to choose the menu. It just gets given to you. I guess something like HBO would qualify. Radio, certainly movies. When you go to see a movie, you look at the title. They probably these days give you a trailer or something. It's not just, oh, that's a title. It's a romantic comedy. I'm going to watch it, and then that's what I get. Often there's like a 2-minute, compilation of clips that allows you to sort of preview a little bit, and they do screenings and there's reviews and blah, blah, blah. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, again, this is the reason that people criticize his ideas a little bit. But let's just say a hot medium, a perfect example is a film. You go in there, you sit down, they show you something, you don't get to change the channel, you don't get to stop, you don't get to choose anything except for the genre and the title. You go in there, you sit there for 2 hours, eat your popcorn, it shoots colors and sound into your brain, and then you go out, and then you're done. Okay? That's what a hot medium is. We'll just say, well, there's things that are kind of warm, they're in between, they're not really hot or cool, but a film is essentially, when you go to the theater, that's what you're doing. You're experiencing a hot medium. High definition, surround sound, high quality everything, shooting it right into your body and into your brain, and that's what you receive, and you can't control, all you can control is really your response to it, that's all. And then you can analyze it and everything, but you can't really control any other sort of option. On the other side of that is something that would be considered a cool medium. So in contrast, you might take something, a conversation is also the use of media. It's mass communication, just the same way that a film is something where information goes in one direction and it's high quality, high definition, and there's really no interaction. In the same way that you would have a phone conversation or you would have a video call. Now, we're working with like a warm media, I guess, right now, because you can certainly, as most of you do, and you shouldn't, you can turn this off or watch half of it and just turn it off and like change and watch something else on YouTube that's funnier or something like that. But please don't. Please watch my whole video lecture. I take a lot of, the thing that hurts the most is when students don't watch my videos, and it takes me a long time to do these things. It takes a lot of effort to prepare all this material and then deliver it. And then if you guys only watch half of it or you skip most of the video, man, I might give you a bad grade, but more than that, it's more like it hurts inside my emotions. Okay, so listen to what I'm saying. But this is not a hot medium or a cool medium. Something else where if I called you personally, you as my students, if we made a Zoom conversation, as a lot of celebrities are doing these days, and that's part of the reason that I'm not shaving and I haven't cut my hair in a long time, is because basketball players and TV hosts and stuff, some of them are just letting themselves go. They're like, Tom Hanks did a really, really funny SNL thing the other day. I think I'm just going to link it to you just to cheer you up. Tom Hanks, if you don't know, I'm sure you know who he is, but Tom Hanks got diagnosed with coronavirus about a month ago. I think he was in Australia, and he went back to the U.S. and he quarantined himself, and he's recovered now, thank God, because he's American. He's America's dad, pretty much. And they filmed the SNL Saturday. If you didn't know, Saturday Night Live is a very famous weekly comedy sketch program on the weekend every Saturday night, where a lot of famous American comedians got started since the 1970s. It's like a 50-year-old show. I grew up watching it. But anyway, they usually have a celebrity who does the hosting. And instead of going to the studio with an audience and all the fun that they have in New York City, it's been shut down. So they decided to do it, as many programs have started to do, except Tom Hanks is in his house with a camera, just like me. And he talks to the camera, except his webcam is probably the most expensive thing you can possibly imagine. And his background is like a gorgeous kitchen, just, custom made. Yeah, he lives in a house that is about 300 times more expensive than mine. So given all those things, Tom Hanks does this recording. It's not live. It's just like this, which makes me feel great because I'm doing the same thing as Tom Hanks, except I'm not Tom Hanks. I'm just Jeremy Sullivan. However, it's the same kind of delivery. If you went on Zoom, or as we're probably going to do, or maybe since Korea's calming down, we might end up in the classroom, which is even better. But if we can't get in the classroom, we're going to do some sort of video call thing, because there's only 8 of you, so we can actually try this. We can actually get all of you to come online at the same time, and I can call you. It doesn't matter if it's on Skype or Zoom or anything else. There's different options, and we can talk. We can have a class together because there's only 8 of you. So we're going to do that. I don't know whether we're going to go in the classroom, and if we do, then we will just sit 2 meters apart with sanitizer in between each person, and then we will have our class with the masks on or whatever. That's what we can do. But we can also use the channel. We can use the YouTube channel, or we can use Zoom or something else to interact with each other. And that is a cool medium. When I learned this theory, I thought the cool medium's hot, like it's more interactive. Interactive is hot. But just remember, that's not what he decided. He decided cool meant flexible, essentially. So hot means you're focused intensely on one thing, and usually in one direction. Whereas a cool medium is something where you can just be like, I'm going to talk now, I'm going to listen now, I'm going to hang up, I'm going to call, I'm going to leave the screen, I'm going to walk across the screen. Except it would be in real time. So again, this is warm medium, so if I left the screen, you could just hang up on me. And here, you can just stop watching if I leave the screen. But nonetheless, as a perfect example of something that qualifies as a cool medium, I think that a telephone conversation is one of those things. Texting also, as we talked about last week, texting is more like conversation than it is like something like email. Email is a hot medium. You send an email, the person just reads the email, they get the information, that's it. It's done. One way, focused, intense, done. If you're texting, you might text and then you might switch applications and play a game for a few minutes and then check if your friend messaged you back and stuff like that. All these things are built in, sort of. And I know it's not a perfect theory, but I thought I would introduce it to you as an introduction to the first half of this class, because his ideas have obviously not aged super well, because we have, flexibility has been added to television. When you have Netflix, it's not like, traditional television, original television was hot, or hotter, I should say. Original television was really not high quality. So in a sense, it was not as intense and it didn't demand your attention as much. But there was a certain point in TV's development where it became a hot medium, basically. Where, and this is my opinion, so don't think that Marshall McLuhan is speaking through my mouth or anything. But basically, the television became high definition, and if you wanted to watch something like, we'll say in the 1990s, something like, I don't know, Friends or Seinfeld. I don't know if you're too young to watch these things, but in the 80s and 90s there were some very famous sitcoms and dramas that people really Game of Thrones would work too. You just every Sunday night or every Friday night or every Wednesday night you tune in and you watch it and you focus on it and it delivers almost like a movie in your TV, except shorter. And that's a hot medium. But Netflix's television just provided to you with the flexibility of just watching it when you want to, and stopping it and starting it and selecting different genres, and it recommends things to you and you can reject them, and you know what I mean. Like that's why people like Netflix. Besides the price, that's obvious. Well, just ignore that. But just in terms of how it's delivered to you, Netflix is attractive, especially to me, because I can get really focused into something, but I'm not a movie person. So 30 minutes is like what I like 20 to 30 minutes. So, a typical television show in the United States is like 22 minutes because they just remove the commercials, and 22 minutes is like the ideal package size for me. But I might watch 10 minutes of it and then pause it and then go make a sandwich and then come back. And that's what you can do with this video too. And that makes it cooler. That cools down the medium. Does this make sense? I hope it does. I'm going to ask you to do an assignment for next week. But as I did with my other class, we have a Monday, Friday class. And because the Monday schedule is pretty stacked for me, I'm going to ask you to do next week's assignment by next Friday. So when I do this lecture, the second half on Friday, I will tell you what the assignment is, and then I will ask you to hand it in next Friday. So there's only 8 of you, but all 8 of you, just listen carefully. Don't email me and say, where's my assignment? Do I have an assignment? What's going on? The second half of this lecture, part 2 of the new media, will be uploaded on Friday, and then you will receive your instructions and you will have a full week to do it as always. Okay? So we will continue our discussion, and I'm going to choose certain types of new media and narrow it down a little bit, because this was more of a general discussion of characteristics of media. So in the next part of this lecture, I'm going to talk to you about specifics. So that's it for tonight, and thank you for being patient. I know you expected this to be uploaded earlier today, but thank you for waiting, and it'll be available and linked to the website by tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. Have a good night.